Chag Sameach. Like many of us, I've been paying a lot of attention to the trends that have been emerging on social media and other platforms related to how people are spending their time um, under quarantine and during this time of social distancing. And one of the things that I noticed is there's a lot of crafting happening, a lot of things happening with our hands. And in particular, one of the things that I've noticed are a lot of people are making sourdough right now, baking bread and getting their hands really into the mix with baking. And as well, a lot of people who have been making art with their hands, making crafts, jewelry, painting, other things like that. And it got me thinking about what all of this might be able to how all of this might help inform us as we head into Shavuot. So we're going to spend a few minutes looking at how these two trends, baking and crafting and making art, might actually help us understand this holiday a little bit better and our relationship to Torah. To get started, let's start first with sourdough, with bread. It's pretty simple, right? It's just a piece of bread that's made out of just two ingredients: grain, wheat, and water. The most simple bread doesn't need any more than that. I couldn't join in this trend because of gluten allergies in my family, but I've been following my friends' adventures at getting their sourdough starters going, and having this renewed vigor around baking. And I think there's something remarkable about taking these two ingredients, flour and water, and turning them into something more complex and nutritious and delicious, simply by adding a third ingredient, which is thyme. Thyme allows the natural yeasts and bacteria in the air, the good bacteria, to get to work breaking down the enzymes and proteins into new arrangements that allow flavor and texture to develop, and unlocking this storehouse of nutrition in the grain to feed us. And this can only really happen with wheat. So the question is, what does this have to do with Shavuot? So let's take a look at some text here. So if we go to the Leviticus text, this piece that speaks about this time period that we are in on the Jewish calendar, Usfartem lachem mimacharat hashabat miyom haviachem et omer hatnufa sheva shabbatot mimot tiena. We are supposed to count 7 weeks of bringing an elevation offering called in Hebrew the Omer, a sheaf of barley every single day, for 7 straight weeks. We do that symbolically today by counting the Omer. And only after that, after 50 days, do we offer what's called a new grain, a mincha chadasha to God. And it also says in the Torah that we should be bringing lechem tenufa, 2 loaves of bread, chametz te'afena, baking it with leaven, something we didn't get to have on Passover, but now we get to have as we come into Shavuot. These leavened loaves of bread as first fruits to God. And it's curious, what's so special about this offering that we're supposed to be bringing on Shavuot? We literally just had a festival 7 weeks ago with Passover. And the commentator Sforno enlightens us a little bit with this. He says that the Omer was a period of bringing barley, which is great, fine. We bring barley every day. It's a nutritious grain as well. But he says the change here is now we're bringing finally the first ripened stalks of wheat. And the reason for this, if you go down to the bolded part, is that it's an opportunity to offer thanksgiving, because even though we've had barley growing for some time now in the growing season, which allows us to do some baking and some feeding of ourselves, wheat is actually a much better grain. And it's also a finicky grain. It's one that's a little bit dangerous to grow because there are many risks to its being successful. So the Torah states that we should be bringing, after weeks of waiting, finally the wheat has grown. We're happy we get to bring an offering and be grateful for that. And it's an opportunity to express gratitude and thanksgiving. The truth is that while barley could feed us, it doesn't allow us to thrive and be as nourished as wheat allows us to be. Michael Pollan, the author of the book Cooked and many other books about food, talks about how bread is when it was discovered, it was a new food that had all these new flavors and textures that people couldn't have conceived of making before from other types of food. And as a food chemist he spoke to said, you can survive on wheat flour, you cannot survive on wheat flour, but you can survive on bread. So up until now, we've been bringing that barley, as I said, in this Omer time. It nourishes us just fine, but it's not nearly as versatile, as capable of filling and fulfilling us as wheat is. Thus, when we bring the first fruits of our wheat harvest on Shavuot, we're expressing gratitude not only for a bountiful harvest, but also for the ability to transform these most basic grasses and grains into something that really can keep us going. So it made me think a little bit about how on Shavuot, the blessing hamotzi really takes on special resonance. Because we know that bread doesn't come directly out of the ground. We have to bake it. We have to process the grain first, and even to make flour to make it. But it gives us an opportunity to express gratitude to a creator who enabled us to develop these skills of taking grain out of the ground with nothing else but water and time, and turn it into one of humanity's most basic and fundamental forms of nourishment. So if you'll indulge me just for a moment, I have a piece of sourdough here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And it's delicious. It tastes very different from just taking a bite out of a wheat stalk. Delicious. Okay, but we're not done here just yet, because this transformation of wheat, from wheat into this transformation of wheat from a grain to a flour to a gloopy, yeasty mess into delicious bread mirrors another Shavuot activity, one that developed a little bit later than the biblical instruction to bring the first fruits of our wheat harvest after 7 weeks of bringing daily barley harvest offerings. This is something a little bit more connected to the idea of Shavuot, not just as an agricultural festival, but a holiday in which we celebrate the giving of the Torah. So we're going to take a look at some text once again, because we've got some more crafting happening here, some more making that we get to have as part of the holiday of Shavuot. So there are a number of texts that speak of this custom that we're engaging in right now, this tikkun leil Shavuot, this time to stay up all night and study Torah, as an opportunity to string together teachings of our tradition. One text, Shira Shirim Rabbah, a midrash, speaks of this Rabbi Ben Azai who is seen sitting and interpreting Torah surrounded by fire. And this other sage, the famous Rabbi Akiva, was told about this. He went to him and said, I heard that you were interpreting and fire was surrounding you. And he said, yes. And he guessed incorrectly what he was spending his time doing. And Ben Azai said, no, what I was doing here was I was sitting and stringing together words of Torah. Torah to the prophets, from the prophets to the writings. And these words, when they were strung together in this way, were as joyous as the day that they were first given at Mount Sinai, just as sweet as when they were first given. And isn't that the essence of what Torah is? It sort of lights a fire in us. It envelops us with a warmth and a flame to keep going when we string them together. And the mystical text of the Zohar takes this even further, saying that in many ways Shavuot is like a wedding night, reuniting the Jewish people with God. And one of the ways we do that is we treat ourselves like the bride, and we need to adorn ourselves. And as this text in the Zohar, one of a few references to this, says, she is adorned by the study of Torah, from Chumash, the Torah, to prophets, from prophets to writing, and midrash of verses, and in the hints of wisdom, and all of these different sources of quote unquote Torah and wisdom that we've accumulated over the years. So this is not just an ancient idea, but it actually goes forward into today. We're not just restricted to this idea of stringing together words of Torah of our most classical ancient texts. We're actually encouraged to be artists ourselves, to make our own unique combinations of our heritage that is our own and meant to be shared with others as well, going through the generations and generations of wisdom that our people has accumulated over time. I think of it a little bit, this process of stringing together words and ideas, a little bit like making a friendship bracelet, adding beads or tying knots one at a time, thoughtfully arranging, deciding where each one should go, arranging them into something beautiful and worth giving to someone I love and care about. And when any one of us takes the time to learn and think about Torah in its most expansive form, this vast library of written texts and oral teachings and folk wisdom that belongs to us, we're adorning ourselves in something beautiful. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't need to be fancy. The poet Billy Collins has this incredibly wonderful poem called The Lanyard, and he speaks of painstakingly learning this craft to give his mother a simple gift that he hoped she would cherish. And I just shared one stanza with you here, which I'll share with you, but I absolutely recommend reading the entire poem. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard or wear one, if that's what you did with them. But that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. This was him recalling his time at summer camp, trying to think of the most precious gift of all that he could give his mother. When we offer something from a place of love and good intentions, how can it not be accepted as a precious gift? Right? Even if it's something as simple as these plastic straps that are woven together to make a bracelet of some kind, given to his mother, who gave him so much that it's hard to even quantify. It's given with love, and it's accepted, therefore, with love as well. And I think that is the essence of Shavuot. From this ancient gratitude practice of transforming our successful wheat crop into something delicious and into nutritious bread, to this slightly more recent tradition of experiencing the joy of Torah by adorning ourselves in its many threads, Shavuot is not for idle hands. It's an opportunity for us to think about the many ways we can continuously transform the words on our pages and the wisdom of our ancestors into something beautiful and personal and meaningful and delicious and nourishing. And so here, I made this for you. Enjoy it, make your own, share them with loved ones. Chag Sameach.